Hi, welcome back to Devon Monk's Works and Worlds. This is actually part 2 of the knitting video that I started earlier, working on that unicorn doorstop. And no, your eyes do not deceive you. We now have some sort of a strange pyramid with an eyeball on top of it. What is this eyeball? Well, I was knitting a octopus, and it was actually a tree squid. The I go to a writing retreat almost every year up at Lake Quinault in Washington State in the rainforest up there, and there's a myth that was created about tree squid, the giant tree squid that slurps up out of the ocean and travels across the mossy, wet rainforest because it's so wet there that the octopus can live in the trees and it'll jump down on people. And so, as a prize to give away for that event, the writing event, I knit up this octopus, and I'll put a picture of it. So that octopus had crocheted eyes. Like, you knit the entire octopus, and I've got to tell you, that toy is terrifying until it's done. Before that toy is done, not cute. Super not cute. I kept thinking, oh no, is this even going to turn into something anybody's going to want, or is it just going to create nightmares? It turned out cute. Toys are kind of like that. They're ugly and unwieldy and ungainly until they're done, and then they're adorable. And I think somehow I find a parallel between knitting toys and having them be difficult and fiddly and full of mistakes and drop stitches and things that you have to go through again and again until it turns out even close to what you might have thought could have been the right thing. Whether you have the right tools, you don't have the right tools, they take time. And I'm talking about knitting right now. Every one of those things, except for maybe drop stitches, which would probably be dropped words, applies to writing. It's a very similar creative process. It is very much one word at a time when you write. It is one stitch at a time when you knit. And so I think the creations very much parallel each other, including when you knit toys. They are awful looking things until you're all done and have finished them, and then hey, maybe you have something pretty cool that you want to share with somebody. And writing is that way for me. Feels kind of ungainly and unwieldy and ugly duckling until the very end, when finally it's something that I hope people will enjoy and it's something that I want to share with people. So what does it have to do with an eyeball? I'll tell you. This eyeball, the octopus toy had a crocheted eye. And the great thing about crochet, which I don't do very much of at all, as a matter of fact, I want to up my crochet game. But the great thing about crochet is it creates in a circle very naturally, whereas knitting is of square kind of fabric making. It stacks on top of square lines. Line, line, line is really knitting. When you join in the round, you're creating a circle, but you're still doing it with these kind of hard lines. And crochet is much more fluid, and it does circles beautifully. So it makes eyeballs really nice. If you want to knit an eyeball, or if you want to create an eyeball, go crochet. Well, I didn't want to crochet an eyeball because I wasn't ready for that challenge. And so instead, I knit. This looks ridiculous. Like, really? I knit a couple eyeballs for the octopus, for that rainforest octopus, the giant squid octopus. Yeah, I knit them. Here, I'll bring it right up close to the camera. Let's see. Here we go, camera. Can you see? Oh, that's a little too close. A little too close. So here's the eyeball that I knit. It is, black pupil and nice blue. The octopus has blue eyes, and it's all knit. But when I knit this one, this was my practice eyeball, as one has a practice eyeball. I practiced on this thing, and it was too large for the octopus. So I realized I had to either use thinner yarn or smaller needles or less stitches, just do something to change the size of it. And so I did. I don't know, I think I did go down a needle size. I think I kept the same yarn, but I think I went down to fewer stitches, something like that. So I made 2 for the octopus, as he should have, and he has 2 eyeballs. That was also given away, yeah, as a raffle prize. So anyway, that left me with an eyeball. just this random eyeball. And I thought, I don't really want to get rid of it, but I don't really want it around all the time. Like, I don't think I want an eyeball that I've made staring at me constantly. So this is my pincushion for my yarn needles, my darning needles or whatever I'm using at the time, for when I travel. So this goes in my little travel knit set. It goes with me to all of my little conventions, and you know, if I go knit while I'm doing something else, like at a game, or if I'm knitting at a book thing, I will have this eyeball with me and it will carry my needles. So this is my yeah, it looks painful. Ugh, this is my needle and eyeball thing. But there it is. That's why we have an eyeball suddenly on the table. This eyeball isn't actually to make this into a pyramid with some sort of Illuminati thing going on. But what it is doing is it's holding our needle, because what I want to do is go ahead and sew up the bottom of this, because I'm going to create the stuffing. And I want to, I want the stuffing to go in here pretty soon, because we're going to start decreasing. So what did I do since the last video? Well, what I did is I took a look at the stitches and I thought one more row of increases should do it. So I have about 60 stitches now on this. We started off with, what did we cast on to begin with? Was it 6 stitches per row or 12? Anyway, here we are. We are at 60 stitches per needle, or per the entire thing, 20 per needle. It is pretty large. I can almost put my fist in it. And this is going to be the largest part of the bottom. Now this is still going to be a pretty small doorstop. I have found, because I've knit a few of them and I use a couple of them, I have a gnome and a wizard that I use all the time. And I found that if they are too big, even if you knit really dense material, you're putting weight in it, and that weight is going to push out on the material and it misshapens it. It stretches it out in weird ways. So it is kind of nice to have something that's a smaller, kind of compact size, and that's what I'm hoping this will be. Also, frankly, this doesn't have to be a doorstop. It could be just a little toy, and if it is a toy, I don't want it to be heavy enough that little sister brains little brother with it, right? I just don't want, well, little sister brains bigger brother, whatever. I just don't want anyone to get harmed by this unicorn if I can keep it. So I probably won't make it super heavy. I'll make it medium heavy. But first we're going to start off by sewing up the bottom. So let me get my needle out. So this is our cast on yarn. Good to keep it around, because we're going to use it to sew up the bottom of the toy. I don't know that there's a way to do this other than before I knit, I was a sewer, because I think as kids, did you have those cards, those sewing cards where it's like the outline of like a turtle and you had a string and a big, thick, heavy plastic needle, and you take the string and you just go in and out every hole around the turtle? I did those. And then eventually I got around to doing more sewing, which I all did by hand. I didn't learn how to use a sewing machine until I was a little bit older than that. Probably wise on my family's part. Okay. So this, because we did the long tail cast on, it kind of creates its own knitting row when you first cast it on. That's just the nature of this beast. It almost looks like it has this sort of trim around it right here. And honestly, very few people are going to pick it up and start the butt. But, there's probably going to be a couple people who want to take a good hard look at the unicorn butt. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew it up. I do not, like I said, I don't do anything fancy when I do this stuff. I'm feeling like what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to do one loop through it maybe, or I might just do crisscrossy. Maybe I'll just do crisscrossy. Yeah, I'm going to try crisscrossy. So what I'll tend to do is I'll start, just literally kind of doing a star shape. So we went in and out, and we're going to pull that nice and tight. And then I'm going to go across and do the same. Again, this does not have to be beautiful. Ta-tall, ta-tall. This just has to sew up the hole on the bottom. And if it is used as an actual doorstop, I just don't think anybody's going to really look. But see, let me get this up there. That light over there is just sort of messing it up, isn't it? If I can kind of, there. Can you see that? Get it? There we go. See? So that's, you can kind of see it. It looks, look, there. Okay, I've put, what, 2 stitches in it, and it looks not bad. Not bad for a unicorn butt. I mean, you can compare it to the unicorn butts that you have on hand, and, you can let me know, is this average butt? I think it's at least average. Maybe not magnificent. I mean, I'm sure somebody out there has a magnificent unicorn butt, but this one's decent, right? Okay, so I'm going to finish sewing it up. I did just put a couple stitches in it, but again, this is going to be weighted, which means this material has to hold that weight. It has to be able to handle the stretch and handle the just the heaviness of it, right? So, and I also, you know, toys, you want to make sure that they're dense and that the stuffing isn't going to be showing through because the stuffing's white. I'll use a fiber fill on this, and I'm not going to use cotton or anything. I'm just going to use old, you know, polyester fiber fill. So I've got my finger on the inside kind of pushing at this, thinking, how's that going to do? How's that going to hold up? I'm giving it a little stress test while I'm going along here. And I think it's not going to do too bad, although right over here it kind of feels like this is a little weirdly loose right here, so I'm going to shore it up a bit. I'm going to maybe get up into the next stitch. Again, you know, there are probably beautiful, perfect ways to do this, but when it comes down to toys, one of the things that I am always concerned about is, are they sturdy? You know, if I give something away that's intended for a baby, which I've also done baby toys, I want to make sure, are they safe? You know, you want to make sure that your safety eyes are on if you're using safety eyes. I don't recommend buttons for the choking hazard, and you know, you want to make sure that all of you, if you're doing limbs on something, arms and legs, that they're nice and secure so that the baby can't tear them off. Super baby. Okay, hang on. So let's see if we can do this again without the light. Does that help? Maybe not, but there it is. It looks like a pretty good, yeah, better than average unicorn butt. We'll give it a good B+. So here we are on the inside, which all looks like purl stitches, and you always tie off your toy yarn on the inside. This is nice because, oops, right now it's very open, so we can do all of our needlework. Sometimes when you're working with toys, you know, you think about with yarn, one, this is all one piece, you know, working its way up, and two, when you do toys, whatever you stitch, you have to hide, like when you tie it off in a knot, you have to hide the remaining yarn somewhere, and you hide it in the toy. And there's a couple different ways to do that that I've found that are useful. Some people don't do knots in their yarn. Again, toy, I do knots in my yarn. So there we are. We've got a little pair of scissors. I'm just going to snip it. Doesn't matter because it's going to get stuffed, so it doesn't matter if I leave it long. I'm going to leave it a little long. If it ever pokes out, we should be able to hook it and poke it back in. So that's kind of why I left it a little long. Okay, so we're going to just stab our eyeball. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the weight that's going to go at the bottom of this that's going to hold it down. So what do I use at the bottom of my doorstops? I've used a couple of different things. And we're going to try something new with this one and see if we like it. I've never done this before, but I had this tool left over from gifts that I made for Christmas. I made... we're working away from having shopping bags in Oregon. Like you can buy your paper shopping bag, but they're trying to move away from plastic shopping bags, including produce bags, although they're still allowing plastic produce bags. But I essentially made these really cool they were double thick produce bags for Christmas and gave them away so that you can reuse them over and over again. They're fantastic in the fridge because they breathe. They're washable, and you just take, easiest pattern ever, basically just fold over whatever size bag you want, zip it around so that it's, you know, a bag shape. Think of making a pillowcase. I don't know, I didn't follow a pattern, I kind of made it up, and then I ran ribbon or a string through the top. I did a, you know, just a hem, and then with ribbon through it, and so that you can pull it tight and not. We use them all the time for produce. They are super useful, and this is cheap material. And again, for something that gets used over and over again, you know, to be able to use a tool bag for several years as opposed to one plastic bag that we'd use for produce, and then we would just throw it away or maybe use it a couple more times, but then it was done. This really lasts. And so anyway, I have a bunch of this stuff left over that was too thin to make into the size bags that I wanted. So I've got some extra material here. Good, it's good and strong though. It's got a little stretch to it. And what are we going to put in this for our weight? Well, you can use rice and you can use beans. The problem with rice and beans is if they're exposed to the elements, especially exposed to water, they're going to swell up, and that's going to make some problems in your toy. The other thing when using natural like rice and beans and stuff, is if you have any possibility of mice or other little bugs or something getting into it, that's definitely tempting to them. The other thing that you could probably use is sand. If you have sand, just put it in a, you know, at this point, I would say put it in whatever, this won't work, it's too porous, but you could put it in a Ziploc bag, I guess. I've used Ziploc bags inside of these. Don't put your weighted object in the toy free. I tried that with one where I'm like, well, it was stones. They were little rocks, clean, polished rocks. I thought I'll just put them at the bottom. They'll be fine even if they all roam around. But what happens is they get kind of stuck up inside of the fluffy stuff, and then they don't stay at the bottom of the toy, and the toy doesn't weight. So we're going to take this. What is this? I gotta show you this. Hang on. I don't know that you can tell. This is a Batman cup. Can you tell? This is the Batman symbol right here. Can you see this thing? I'll take everything out of it. Maybe you'll be able to see. I'm not even sure what's on it. The Batmobile. And ooh, R for the Robin. This is an old cup. I don't know if it was a giveaway from like, oh, there, see? There's Robin. I think it's a collectible, like not fancy. Oh, yeah. There you go, a little advertisement. It's from a fast food place. I don't even know how I ended up with this. I don't think I ever got this. But here it is in my house. And inside of it are, these are little glass decorative beads. And I find that the more I buy these things, the more things they end up getting used for. So these were last used for part of a decoration in a wedding, a family wedding. They aren't needed anymore, but I didn't want to just throw them away. So I thought, I'm sure I will find a use for them, especially if I'm making toys. And here we go. This thing weighs something. So I'm going to go ahead and just dump out about that many. How many? That many. And I'm going to see if I can just tie this up into a bag. But I'm going to do, yeah. Okay, so how would this best work? Oh, see, this is where you're thinking, Devon, did you ever take origami or something? No. Yeah, no. Girl Scout? No, not a Girl Scout. Just gonna make this stuff up on the fly. Oh yeah, gonna make this stuff up on the fly. Okay, so I'm just gonna tie the corners like a little knapsack, and then I'm gonna tie the pieces, the little arms to the arms. And again, you know, you don't want your stuff in there to roam around free. That being said, if it happens, it's not like it's the end of the world if one of these slips out or anything. But this will be, oops, just tipped over my unicorn. How are we doing? That's pretty good. We've got this one spot. This will be, I think this will hold it good enough. I mean, I guess I could have used a rubber band around it too. That would have worked, but I just thought I'll knot it together. Again, this whole toy is going to be stuffed, so you're not really going to feel this in with all the other stuffing and whatnot. So whoever gets this unicorn gets this lovely little package of stones that were at a wonderful ceremony, a beautiful wedding. So there's lots of good, happy, good energy in these guys. Okay, there we go. So there. Now we have ourselves a nice little packet. It's a little flexible, which is nice because we will want it to flex. It looks like nothing's really going to fall out. This is going to be perfect. And yeah, that weighs a little something. Let's see if I made it the right size or fit in our unicorn body here. But again, it'll be squishy, right? So essentially that's going to go right in. Oh yeah. Boy, just couldn't have almost made it any bigger, right? Almost no room for the fluffing with all that big rock. But that's heavy. That could actually hold a door, which is what we're aiming for. So before I stick this in here, I'm gonna show you a little secret that happens with all of my toys. There's a few that got past me that I had stopped doing this little tradition, but when I first started making toys, I decided that every toy should have a lucky coin in it. And why is the coin lucky? If I knew who I was giving the toy to, I would make it either their birthday or a special day a year for them. If it was a baby toy, I would put the year of the baby being born. If it was a gift for a birthday, I might put the year of that birthday in it. So it just felt like, I don't know, just, you know, that lucky little penny inside of that toy is just a little extra secret gift. So here's our lucky little penny. Let's take a look. There it is. Ooh, shiny. Is our penny? Oh, AB link in there. This is not a 2019 because I'm not even sure if they have 2019 pennies out right now. I'm assuming, but I don't have any. But it is a new penny. It's a 2018. It's very shiny. I actually started writing this book in 2018, right at the end of 2018. So that's when this book began. This is when the unicorn began to be a thing. And so there's the lucky penny that's going to go in the bottom of our toy. And that's just a little secret between us that these are inside of Devon Monk toys. Okay, so here we go. Now we put in our stones, and frankly, they might be too much. That might be just a little bit too much, but we're gonna let it be at the moment, because look at how nice and round that makes that. See? Isn't that terrific? That's good. Okay, so what did I do when between the last knit video and this one? Well, what I did is decided how many stitches I wanted on. I think I said that at the beginning of the video, and I wanted 60. That's what I have on there is 60. But the other thing that I did is I went ahead and knit a few extra rows. So essentially our last increase row is like right here. You can see, let me tip it. So see this kind of like laddering up effect that we have going? These are the increases on either side that took our tiny pattern down here and just grew it and grew it and grew it and grew it and grew it in each section. These are kind of done in, well, as you can tell, 3 sections of triangles is how the pattern's built. That's how, what's his name? Norman the Gnome? Is that his name? Anyways, that's how that pattern is built. And these little lines here, all of these lines that you see going up and up and up are our increase ones, right? Because these are our little purl stitches. They look like lines, little ladders. So these are our increases, and our last increase was right here. So this is a couple rows back. So here's our increase, and there's another stitch and another stitch and one more stitch. So I think we've done about 3 stitches above our last increase row, which is how many rows this Norman the Gnome pattern would have, except a couple of those would be extra increases to go up to 72 stitches. And I didn't want 72 stitches. So I'm going to take this out because it's heavy. It's going to be heavy on my fingers, on my hands. I'll set this to the side. So the next row is you knit, and then after that we begin the decreases, which is why I wanted to get my weights here to go inside of it, because once we decrease, so once it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, we're going to run out of room to be able to put anything inside of it. So we're going to do one more knit row, and then I'm going to do a decrease row, and then you do a couple of decrease rows before you shift the color to do the face and on a gnome. So you know the gnome pattern, I'm not sure, let me see if I have the picture of it so you can see what we're working on here. Yeah, okay. So basically here's what we're going to do here. Let's get it up to the camera. We've seen it before, but here it is again. This is the pattern we're modifying. Here's our gnome. So right now we are get my little scissors. Right now we are, you know, right here at the whitest part of the toy, which our whitest part of the toy is not as white as this toy. And then we're going to go up a little bit more, and then as you can tell from the curve of this guy, we've gone up to the whitest part of the toy, and then it starts curving in, it starts decreasing in. So we're going to decrease for a little while, and we decrease in this blue. I printed it out in black and white because I was out of colored ink for my printer when I printed it. I'm like, it'll be fine, I won't show it on camera. Now I'm totally showing it on camera, so excuse me for that. But so yeah, we're out here at this widest point, right about here maybe, and now we're going to start decreasing in, so to make it narrower. So we do a little bit more of our main color before we switch over to our face color right here, and our face color is very short. And this is where we're going to start getting into the unicorn business. This is where we're going to create some short rows right here. We're going to try that German short row and see how badly I mess it up, because there is no doubt that I'm going to mess it up. We'll just find out how bad, how badly I do it. But we'll do our German decreases here, and that I think what I'm aiming for is I want a ridiculous, dumb, stubby, squishy, horsey muzzle. I want a squishy nose, but not just like a little nose. I want like, oh, this flat, ridiculous, horsey shaped nose thing. And then above that, we'll put the horsey, the unicorn eyes, right? Big, big unicorn eyes. And then we'll work the horn and the mane and the tail and I think the little hoovy arms and feet. So it's definitely going to be won't look like the gnome, but we are definitely using this pattern to modify. And so up into here, we're going to just kind of carry on, except we've made it a little bit smaller with less stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and knit this decrease so you can see how to decrease, which is super fun. This pattern does a one-sided decrease, and frankly, it isn't my favorite. I mean, it's a fine decrease. I have no problem with the person who put this pattern together using it. I think it's great. What's tricky is on this particular toy, it only decreases at the beginning of each of these needles, and what happens is you get it's called laddering, which I know I called that laddering, but what I'm talking about, this laddering, which is the real term in knitting, it creates like these holes as you're decreasing, so you can see that the fabric changed here, and it isn't pretty. I don't love that, and I've done a couple different things to try to change that, like shifting my decrease by a stitch one or the other way to kind of make the fabric take up some of the stretch and make it kind of work better. So I might mess with it a little bit to see if I can get less laddering going on in this decrease. But we don't know until we start getting into it, right? That's kind of how this project goes. So let's take a look at the pattern. Essentially, we are on the, take a look at our thingy here. We are on the decrease round after we knit around. I was talking instead of knitting, wasn't I? Let's get back to the knitting. Okay, let's get up here. We can see it. So we're going to knit around and then we're going to decrease around. And that puts us even with how far up we should be going for how far out we should be going, although we went a little less out. So we're going to go around here. All right. Okay. I think next knitting video, I might actually bring some of the toys. So to fact, in the last knitting video, I was talking about the different things that I've given away. I've knit specifically to be a part of my books, like this is something you can find in my books, and so I knit it kind of thing. Not the Nosferatu Vampire Bat. I didn't put that in any of my books. I just thought that was adorable, so I knit it as a giveaway. But so the Fireman Werewolf, Inside Out Werewolf, I knit it to go with, I think at that time I had maybe just book 1 of Ordinary Magic out, Death and Relaxation. And I just introduced those characters, which have a part of what comes up in the rest of the books. If you haven't read them, I don't want to blow anything, but they have a storyline that comes up. Bill and James are firefighters. One's a vampire, one's a werewolf. But anyway, so the werewolf toy that I knit, I'll get it and show it to you. I'm not going to stop the video to go get it, but I'll show it off in the next video. I'll just put a picture up, but I will show it off in an upcoming video. Whichever toys I still have left, I'll show, because like I said, I tend to give them away, but I'll show what I have in an upcoming video. But this toy, let me go back to that. The Inside Out Werewolf Firefighter, I knitted up for a giveaway, and it was a challenging toy for a couple of reasons. For one, it wasn't a firefighter. I made that up. It didn't have an axe. I made that up. I changed parts of it because I wanted it to be different, so I modified it as I went, even though I had a really good solid. There is an Inside Out Man to Werewolf knitting pattern that you can knit. You can have your own Inside Out Man Werewolf toy, because I'm sure that's exactly what you were thinking. Oh man, where can I possibly get one of those? You can make one. So I knitted up for this giveaway, and the person who won the prize never claimed it. Maybe she didn't like werewolves. Maybe she just didn't want a knitted toy. I get that. And I mean that sincerely with all of my heart. Sometimes this just isn't your thing, and I respect that. There are things that are not my thing too. So I still have the werewolf Inside Out firefighter because the prize winner never claimed it. I tried getting hold of her like 4 or 5 times. By that time the giveaway was over. It was a big group giveaway, so I couldn't really like keep yelling at people like, hey, don't forget you should pick up your prize. So I kept it. I felt bad because, I mean, the only reason I made it was to give away. Hang on, water. Apparently I forgot how to drink water. Oh my gosh. Let me try again. Okay. I remembered how to drink water. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so I still have that as a giveaway. We're going to decrease, so we're going to talk about that. But when I was talking in my first knitting video about how I've knit a lot of gnomes, and one of the first gnomes that I ever knit was the Allan Dart gnome. I think it's called like the Yuletide gnome. I'll see if I can find a link to it. And I made one of those for myself and I kept him. But I made one for a friend, Nina Creaky Hoffman. She's a fiction writer, short fiction writer and novelist. She writes fantastic stuff. If you haven't tried her stuff, give it a shot. Nina Creaky Hoffman. Anyway, she wanted a gnome. She asked me very sweetly for one, and I said absolutely. So I made her up one, and I know she still has them, which is really great. But right around that time, my kids were playing, was it WoW or were they playing League? I think they were playing WoW, World of Warcraft. Remember when that was a big thing? The biggest thing? Yeah. And a couple of them were playing gnome characters. And so I modified the gnome to, which looks more like the pattern is more like a Christmas type gnome, you know, with a tall pointy hat, into more of a World of Warcraft gnome. And I made, I think, 2 of those guys. And one of them is still around here somewhere. So definitely gnomes have gotten me far. Okay, so we're going to do our decrease. We are going to knit one, we are going to knit 2 together, and then we are going to knit across the needle and do this at the first of each needle. Like I said, it only decreases at the beginning of each row essentially, which I don't know, I don't love the decrease, so we might mess with it. So there's our knit one. Now we're going to knit 2 together. So 2 easy decreases. One of them is knit 2 together, and that makes your stitches pull a certain way. So here's one stitch, and here's the other stitch. And instead of just knitting this one, we're going to knit both of these at the same time. So we get the needle under this one and in that one. And then we just pick up our thread and we knit through it. So there's our knit 2 together. And this creates a, what is it, a right leaning, left leaning? It creates a leaning decrease. It will, you know, we took 2 stitches and turned them into 1, and they lean one way. I think they lean left. And then the other decrease, should we just be like rebels and try it with this one? What do you think would happen? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? It'd look weird. We should try it. Okay, I'll show you the other decrease. We're going to do it on the other side. So we're going off the beaten path here. So the other decrease is called a, oh look, there we go. Let's see, knit 2 together, and what's the other one called? Why am I blanking on it? I think it's called a knit. Come on, knitters out there, you know what I'm talking about. It's the other leaning decrease. Knit, Passover, KKP or something like that. So it goes, we're going to do it on these 2 here. So instead of knitting 2 together like we did before, which is this, it would be this stitch and this stitch, and we would put the needle into both of them and knit them together. You instead use, oh, it's slip, knit. That's what it's called, because what do? You slip, you knit. So you slip the stitch. You slip the stitch. So we just took the 2 stitches without actually working them and just picked them up and slipped them onto this needle. Slip, knit. And then you knit them together through the back loop, kind of. So instead of, like, basically we're going to knit them using this needle going into them, whereas usually your right needle is always your needle that goes into your other needles. But now we're going to use this bad boy over here. So instead of knitting into the front, Well, I don't know why one would do that, but that is not how you do it. You take your left stitch into the back of the two stitches, and I'll show you the way that I do it that's easy. You put your needle into the front because that's how you can probably most easily slide the needle in there. Come on, needle. Don't prove me wrong. Water already got me. Okay, there we go. So you've got your needle in the front, and then you knit with this needle in the back, and you pull it through, and that's your knit, slip, slip, knit. But the other way that I will sometimes do this, which I don't know if it's the right way, it's how I first started doing this because I was in an awful hurry. I'm just like, I need to get this thing done. I don't even know what I was trying to get done, but I was in a hurry. And I'm like, okay, slip, slip, knit. All right, I've never done that stitch before. Just, I'll figure it out as I go. I'm not going to worry about it too much because I don't care. I don't even know. I was such in a hurry. So hurried. Okay, just switch this around so that it's back to our regular 2 stitches here that we're now going to slip, slip, knit. So when I was, get this needle out of the way, it's kind of bugging me. Okay, so when I first did it, instead of slipping one, slipping the other one, sticking the needle in, putting it around and taking it off, I thought, well, if I just grab this guy, which is how essentially the yarn would slip, and grab this guy, because again, that's also how the yarn would slip if I were to slip it off. But instead of slipping it off, just trade the places of my needles. See that? So like essentially I would have slipped this guy, like whoop, slip him, and whoop, slip him. Just keep my needle in there. Flip this around to the front. So now I haven't actually moved my needles out of the stitches at all. Grab a hold of the yarn and knit it together. Slip, slip, knit together. Okay. So this creates a this way leaning decrease, and this creates a that way leaning decrease, and this says to do it at the beginning of each row, and essentially I'm only supposed to decrease 3 stitches per round, but if I do 1 on each needle, I'm going to decrease 6 stitches, and that's going to be a pretty fast decrease compared. It's going to be twice as fast. I will be decreasing twice as quickly. So I think I'm going to do, this is 1, this is 2, then I'm going to go ahead and just knit like Lulu, I'm doing my pattern and pretend like I actually knit 2 together and I didn't, which might be a terribly bad idea. Maybe I should have done it at the beginning of this row. That probably would have made more sense. Well, you know, we're not so far that I can't go backwards. So now why am I even worrying about that? Because this person who wrote the pattern is saying to only decrease 3 per row. No, you know, I'm gonna keep going. We are off-roading this sucker. Nobody tells a unicorn how a unicorn is supposed to look. Maybe they do. But we're just gonna go along. Okay, so essentially this one is not going to have a decrease this time. I think every other row I'll decrease on a different needle. Yeah? Let's see if that works. Just kind of trade it up a little bit. So that's 1, 2 on the first needle decreased, and I'm going to go ahead and decrease this one, and I'm going to do it the way that the pattern says, which is to knit 2 together. Super easy. 1 and 2, knit 2 together. There we go. And off we go. Just come down. So the good thing about just decreasing 1 at the beginning of each row is that it is kind of like just spiraling into a cone. Like you just, it is a good way as far as the shaping is good. I just don't like the stitches as much. I mean, I've done it a lot of times, so it's not like I don't like it at all. Please, designer, don't think that I'm saying I don't like it. I'm just saying I'm trying to find a way around that whole situation that I kept finding myself in. So there's 3, and basically we did 1 leaning that way, 1 leaning that way, and I think on this needle I'm going to go ahead and do the 2 together. So essentially I did needle 1 got 2 decreases, needle 2 got no decreases, needle 3 is going to get 2 decreases, and next row I'll do needle two will get the decreases and the other two won't. And let's see what happens. Where were we at? Okay, so we're going to go here and we're going to go ahead and basically slip knit, right? And I'm going to do it my quickie easy way. Doing it this way actually does lay the stitches out a little bit differently. If you want the cleanest look, you will do it the actual way, which is not what we're doing right here. We're doing the fast way. There we go. And remember when I said in the other video, if you want to increase, you don't increase every row, you increase every other row. Same with decreases. So this row is just going to be plain old knit, although I did say that I was going to mess around with that second needle and do some decreases there. I wonder if I'm gonna. It's likely. Let's see. I think I won't. You know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and knit this, and the next row I will do the 2 on the middle. And I think we'll just kind of average it out, and hopefully, the problem is it won't be quite so defined and conical, but I think we might still get a really cute pattern. And again, we're not actually making a gnome. We are doing something a little different. We are making a unicorn in the in a basic gnome shape, because I think it'll be funny that way. But I think we're gonna try this second row here. So this is our second, me saying rows when we're not even doing rows. This is a round, but this is our second needle in this round, because all of our stitches are separated per needle, so many per needle is how you keep track of this pattern. Sometimes you use stitch markers or other things, but this one they're just keeping a certain amount on each needle, and if you keep that certain amount on each needle, then you know when to do what, you know, like do something on the first stitch of each needle. Yeah, you know what to do. So one of the things that surprised me about knitting when I first picked it up, of course, the first thing I ever made when I knit was when I was a kid, I knit a terribly long, horrifyingly ugly scarf. Words cannot tell you the ugliness of this scarf. And it was uneven and none of the yarn matched, and it was horrible. And it was wonderful because it was a great experience on knitting. By the time of knitting that horribly awful, terrible scarf, I had my tension down. So it was a good learning project. And I had a lot of fun knitting it. When I was knitting it, I thought, this is the best thing ever. You just keep knitting and it just keeps getting longer, and you could have the longest scarf in the world, which I almost, maybe got close to it. But what surprised me when I got into knitting and modifying patterns and trying to write my own patterns is how much math is involved in this stuff. I just think knitting is, you just go along and eventually whatever you want, it turns into. But, how large your needles are makes a difference, what kind of yarn you're using, including the stretch and the loft, the fluffiness of it. The size of it, how heavy it is, makes a difference for the yarn, for the fiber. How your particular tightness of gauge and evenness of stitches going up and going wide makes a difference. Stitches make a difference. What we're doing right here is basically, this is considered stockinette stitch, which is it all looks flat on this side, but you can knit with like ridges to create stretch. That's usually like at cuffs of sweaters and shirts and things. And cuffs of socks have stretch in them. But when I got around to starting to modify patterns, I realized that there's a lot of math that goes into it. I mean, some of it is, sorry about that, some of it is guess and go. But, okay, so we're at the beginning of this round, and we have already knit one flat round. So this would be a decrease round if we were decreasing. So we're going to go look at that. So I'm going to show you how I look to see if I have decreased. And it's not always obvious, like it's not the easiest to see, but this is our little double decrease right there. How can I tell? Well, good eyes, but see this? Here, I'll go a little bit further here. So anyways, I'm pretty sure that's where we are in the pattern, which that would mean I said on this round, I was going to take our needle, and our second needle, this was our first, and I'm going to decrease on each side. So that was a knit two together, and this will be a slip slip knit. Let's see if that's right. Also, the other thing about knitting, besides it being full of math, is it doesn't have to. There is a lot of just go as you go and see what it can be and what it can make, and learn as you go. So it's not like you don't have to have, we're gonna do a slip slip knit again, this little slip slip knit like this, which isn't probably really a slip slip knit, but we're gonna use it. So, you know, if you're new to modifying patterns, or if you just want to try to make something on your own, you can just dig in. I decided, I think the first pattern, I want to say the first pattern I made was stone, but I think and I might have even said that in the last video, but I got to thinking about it and I think I lied, because the very first pattern I think I ever made on my own, I'll have to go look at them. They were really close to each other. One was 1 month and one was the next month. So I can't quite remember which one came first, but I think this one came first. I made Cthulhu. Is that how you say that? Cthulhu? You know, the eldritch god, the, you know, our Lovecraftian horror. I made Cthulhu chapstick holders. I have pictures of those too. Yes, I did. I made Cthulhu chapstick holders, and they were, I was very new to knitting. I had made the gnome, I remember that, and then I thought, well, I can knit in the round, and it's kind of like this, and I think I had learned how to do a one row buttonhole in knitting, and I'm like, well, I could modify a one row buttonhole into a mouth, and so I did, and I made it so that it has kind of a hinge on the back, so you can open and close the mouth and you can get your chapstick out of it. And I made, like, I didn't make very many of them because for all that they're a small project, they were kind of a little fiddly, but I think I made, I don't know, 5 or 6 of them. I gave them away as Christmas gifts to some people, and they were fun, and that's where I discovered that I hate making I-cord. Hate it. It is my least favorite knitting thing. Now, I did a recent hat that had an I-cord bind off, so you use a 3 needle bind off to create a trimming edge that's an I-cord trim, which was actually very cool, and it created a really cool edging. So I respect you, I-cord. You're just not my favorite guest at the party. So I will I-cord when necessary. If I can avoid it, I'm gonna avoid it. So, but anyways, with the Cthulhu chapstick holders, like the Cthulhu's little, what's his little, you know, his little tentacle-y things coming out of his mouth, those were all little I-cordy things. And boy, I got tired of making those. So yeah, I did make those from the pattern. That is on my webpage if you want to make your own. So, you know, you can make your own Inside Out Werewolf Firefighter. You can also make your own Cthulhu chapstick cozy, and that is written out as a pattern. I was like, on top of that, I made that sucker. So it's there for free. Like I mentioned in a previous video, I will probably never charge for my patterns because I just want people to have some fun. Have a pattern, have some fun, do something cool with it. You know, I'm good with that. Okay, we are essentially on a decrease round again, and we are supposed to knit one. I remember that now. I don't think I was doing that on the other rows. Poor unicorn is not going to look at all like a gnome here pretty soon. Okay, and here's our knit 2 together. I'm going to do that same thing where I'm going to do the decreases on this round for 2 needles, and I'm going to leave 1 needle not decreased, and then I'll do that needle decrease after we do a knit row. So every other row is 2 needle decrease, well every 3, so it's 2 needle decrease, knit row, 1 needle decrease, knit row, 2 needle decrease. That's what I'm doing, and that's what we're going to see what we get out of it here. So we're going to slip slip knit these guys, our little fakey slip slip knit. What's going to happen is I'm decreasing more on this needle than I am on this needle, so I'm going to end up with more stitches on this needle eventually. We will deal with that issue when we get there. That's what I think. This is modifying knitting as you go. So, okay, so we have decreased a couple of stitches though. So as soon as we get to the end of this round, I want to put the stones back in it and take a look. And I probably should also be paying attention to how many rows I was supposed to knit before we changed colors, because that from the body to the face, that distance, I actually like that distance on the gnome, so I want about the same distance on the unicorn. This much body, that much face. Oh no, what am I on? I'm on the second needle, which is no decrease, right? And we're gonna have to go back and count how many rows we did. Which if it hadn't been such kind of a long day today, and kind of it's getting on into the evening, my brain might be a little smarter and might be able to apply it, just supply me the information, but we're gonna go back and count on our fingers so that I know where the heck I am supposed to be in this pattern. All right, so almost done. Getting right through it. Okay, we're going to do our slip slip knit here. This is our how we're messing up the pattern. I mean, modifying. Okay, and I'm just going to lock the stitch marker on so it doesn't just go falling off. I'm just going to put one more stitch in. Okay. So we said that we knit up the same amount as the pattern, and then we did one decrease row, we did a knit row, we did a single needle decrease row, we did a knit row, we did a double 2 needle decrease row. So we've done 5 rows. So in the pattern it says to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I was supposed to knit several rows. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 rows. 16 rows before we decrease anymore. And actually, that pattern, I'm glad I even looked at it, because I was supposed to do just some straight knittings, 3 of them. Yeah, 3 just straight knit rows to give it more height. So I might have to check into that. Now this isn't the final, so I'm just going to look at how it fits in here. I know the penny goes on the bottom. We don't have our lucky penny in here, but oh, looky, 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 looky. We are getting a little rounded bottomed little something something. And there's a little room in there, which is great because that's where we're going to put our stuffing in it. So when you touch it, it has some squish instead of just feeling like a box of rocks. But I think it's coming together okay. This is doing all right. Let me tip it a little so you can see. So see, it's looking pretty round. I mean, it's looking a little triangular, which is, again, this is this pattern. It's kind of built this way, and it's what I want. So we're okay. Let's tip it so you can see the bottom. See, good butt, good butt. Yeah, this is good. So next what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to go ahead and do the single needle. Let's see, it's a knit row again. And then I'm going to do the single needle decrease. And then I might do a couple more just knit rows because I do want a little more height. And I have decreased more than they said. Although, yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell at this stage. At this stage, you're kind of going on trust that it's all going to work out. And it's all going to work out. I think it is. So, but I think I'm going to stop for the session and I will do some more later. I'll do the decrease row on the single needle, and then I'll do a knit row, then the decrease row on the single needle, and then I'll do 3 knit rows, and then that will put us about halfway through this decreasing, and then I might do a couple more decrease rows. But when I switch over to the face color, when we switch over to the unicorn face, I will start the videos again and you will be there to watch me try to do the German short row technique that I have never tried before, and therefore I'm going to be amazing at it. I'm sure I'm not going to do anything wrong the first time because that's how it always works. I'm gonna screw it up so bad, and you get to be there to watch watch me screw it up. So until then, hey, if you got to the end of this video while we were working through this, thank you for coming along. Please leave some messages down below in the box down there and ask me questions if you have questions, any comments. It helps me know what you're interested in me talking about when I'm doing these videos. I am going to do some more writing question videos. I should be able to queue those up tomorrow, and so I should have them out soon. In the meantime, thank you for spending some time with me and knitting. I'm excited about our unicorn. It's getting somewhere, and we're going to get the lucky penny in it. We're going to get some stuffing in it, and we're going to get its face on. When we get back together again, we're going to get its face. We'll see how those short rows go, and if it's relatively quick, because we'll be doing less stitches and less stitches, so it should go faster and faster. We might even get to the horn next time, but we'll see. If not the horn, we're at least going to get its face on and maybe get up to the horn. So stay tuned. I don't know how many parts this video series is going to be, but I will label this. I think this is part three. Here, I put my fingers out here, part 3. And thank you for joining me. Please come again. If you want, we can knit together, we can talk together, and I really appreciate you stopping by and spending some time with me. So until next time, knit on, my friends, craft on, my friends, and read on, my friends, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.